Hi guys, I'm Maylin Dovan, certified athletic therapist and founder of Rehab-U Movement and Performance Therapy. I'm here with Joey Russo from Fast Strong Kinesiology, and we're going to talk about the foot and foot stability as a foundation for all your lifts. We're going to go through a few different topics around the foot, namely how to activate it, and then how to transfer that activation to what you do in movement, so understanding what the foot is doing on the ground. So what we do to activate the foot is one thing, and understanding what we do with the foot when we lift is another thing that we build on top of that, okay? We're gonna start with the concept of activating the foot. A good idea before doing exercises to activate the foot is to stimulate some proprioception, and you'll often see people with lacrosse balls or spiky balls rolling under the foot, which can be really interesting to stimulate that proprioception. So I would roll close to the head of the first metatarsal, I would roll along the outside of the foot and roll on the heel, okay, all of your points of contact. One of the misconceptions about the foot, or the thing that people sometimes do wrong or have misunderstanding of, is the famous foot tripod. So when we talk about the foot tripod, I'm going to come down on the floor here. I'm going to break for a minute and just say how much I appreciate Joey having clean feet, pretty feet, nice feet with short toenails, you know, like that I'm not afraid to touch. So many people come to see me like right after their training with their sweaty, stinky socks and sweaty feet. I'm used to working with sweaty, stinky feet, but that being said, I really appreciate these nice, clean, pretty feet, okay? That said, the famous foot tripod is head of the first metatarsal, head of the fifth metatarsal, and heel. That's our tripod. The idea of the tripod is it indicates to us that our weight should be centered within that area. It's not about pushing those points of contact into the ground. It's about how your weight shouldn't be all on your heels, and it shouldn't be all on the balls of your feet, okay? It's about centering your weight within that tripod. That's what the tripod is for. It's not driving that down into the ground super hard, okay? One thing to mention. Now, the second way to activate the foot, or one of the most important things to do before you do your foot activation exercise, I mentioned using the ball to stimulate proprioception. We want to gain a little bit of awareness of the toes and how our toes move, because most people spend their time in shoes. Okay, Joey spends a lot of time barefoot, which is a good thing. A lot of people spend a lot of time in shoes, high heel shoes, business shoes, running shoes that are like tied really tightly. So a lot of people, their toes don't have a lot of room to move, and so they've lost that awareness of how to move the toes. And the toes are going to be important in activating the foot because we need them to grip the ground. So one exercise that I like to use to gain awareness of the toes is the toe tap exercise, where same as you would tap your fingers if you're impatient, tapping your fingers on the table, you will do the same thing with the feet and tap the toes. So lift up the toes, try to create as much space as you can between them, and then tap them down on the ground one by one. Okay, lift up, create space, and tap down. Okay, and these are the kinds of exercises, guys, that you'll do one time and you'll be like, oh my God, I suck. And then you have to just practice them more and more. Okay, so lift up the toes, spread the toes, and try to tap them down on the ground one at a time. So I would go for about 8 to 12 times on each side, and he could do this twice. Okay, so gaining awareness of movement of the toes. The next exercise, that's a great exercise for activating the foot and creating an arch, okay, because we need an arch at the foot for a functional foot. And a lot of people tend to fall into their arch when they walk, stand, or load, okay? So we want to create a natural arch using the muscles of the toes, okay? Using the plantar fascia, using the tendons of flexor hallucis longus and flexor digitorum longus. So the flexor muscles of the toes, but we're actually not trying to flex the toes, we're just trying to grip the ground with the toes. So, same process, he's gonna first uplift the toes, create space between his toes and then get them down on the ground. And then lightly grip the ground with the toes, just so he feels that he gets an uplift here and a little bit of an uplift even head of the first metatarsal. He's not driving that down into the ground. It's still part of the tripod, so his weight still needs to be centered within that tripod, but he's not driving that point of contact down. Because if he does drive this guy down, what does he get? He gets that pronation. He gets that internal rotation. He's gonna get that hip internal rotation. He's gonna lose his glute activation, okay? Because the foot connects to the core, connects to the glutes. Okay, so short foot exercise. This is an exercise that was popularized by Yanda, short foot exercise. So remember, just a slight grip of the toes on the ground. You're not trying to flex them, you're trying to grip them. Okay, and foot tripod is just how you place your center of gravity within the tripod. Okay, not necessarily driving those points of contact down into the ground. Okay, so those are exercises to activate the foot. Now the other thing that people need to understand is how the foot works on the floor. So the first part of that would be activation, okay, the exercises that we see. So stimulate the proprioception, work on awareness of movement of the toes, use the short foot exercise to activate. And now we also need to understand how our feet work into the floor when we're lifting, okay? And what happens with the feet when we're lifting is, yes, we're using that short foot exercise, right? So we're creating that functional arch using that short foot exercise, and he's gonna bias a little bit of weight on the outside of the foot, a little bit, because he's still tripod, right? And he's gotta think about how he's always pushing into the floor, okay? Because the feet are always reacting to gravity driving you down into the floor, okay? Times whatever the amount of weight you put on your shoulders, for example, for a squat, or whatever amount of weight you're lifting up for a deadlift, or whatever amount of weight you're overhead pressing, or dude, whatever amount of weight you're bicep curling, you're still gonna use the feet on the floor, okay? So it's important to understand that it's not just about creating an arch, it's understanding that once I have that arch, and once I understand where my weight is centered on my tripod, I also always need to have my feet reacting to the ground. My feet are always pushing the ground away in my standing position. I'm never just standing there with weight. Okay, so understanding light grip of the toes, getting a nice functional arch, pushing into the floor, and that's gonna create irradiation all the way up. You guys know what irradiation is. The more tension I get from all the surrounding muscles, the more tension I'll be able to create and transfer to the barbell. So it works if you're overhead pressing, it works if you're squatting, it works with whatever you're doing. So always bring it back to the feet. They're the foundation of all of your lifts when you're standing up. Then that being said, I said standing up. So I just want to mention something because it happened the other day in the gym where one of the exercises in the group training was a floor press, a dumbbell floor press. I'm going to get you lying down. Yeah. So a floor press is where you do a bench press with dumbbells but lying on the ground. And again, I saw a bunch of people with their feet flailing all over the place, their knees falling in. So there's no core stability there. There's no irradiation happening. So I said when you're standing up, but as a matter of fact, it's even when you're lying down. I still would want you to work on grounding those feet, grounding, getting that activation, and then doing your floor press, all right? And you're still gonna be a lot stronger and more stable to do your floor press in this position than if you have floppy, inactive feet. Okay, So utmost importance, the foot. If you have any questions about the foot, let me know. There's also a Pick My Brain segment of the blog where I can answer specific questions or lead you to other resources on the foot, because there are some great ones out there.